Hello sensuals. Today I got a question from Julian, my cameraman. What is my opinion and what do I recommend to couples who are in a long-term relationship where the sex drive or the sexual activity goes down? Now, first of all, we all know this, in long-term relationship, we find ourselves not having as much sex as we used to. Now, there can be multiple reasons for that. The first and foremost reason is that when we cultivate on the long run, things tend to get settled down. Our hormones tend to get more balanced and more equilibrium because we are having somebody with us whom we can manifest and express, and basically we have somebody with whom we can answer to our hormonal drive to have sex. So that's why the body on the long run tends to have had enough in order to not crave it so much, so it can go for longer periods of time without it. No, it doesn't mean that you're dying, or it doesn't mean that you're off the market, it doesn't mean that you're no longer capable. No, it's the body that does its natural thing, and it's totally fine, it's totally okay, as long as this is the reason. Because there are obviously other reasons. I was talking in an earlier video how, at least for women, we are emotionally wired in our sexuality. Obviously, this is not the case just for women. So men can be just as much emotionally wired in their sexuality as women. So on the long run, if we are in a long-term relationship where, let's say that emotions have gone in all directions, and we've been through intensity and passion and intense love and very deep love, and maybe we've evolved and we've changed thanks to that intensity that we've had in the past. And in some cases we may evolve in different directions, and I've seen this around me, I've seen this happening to me as well. We're changing. The fact that we're living a beautiful love story changes us, transforms us, and we're transforming into what is potentially inside of us, into what is the best that we know in that moment, that our body, that our being can turn into. Now, the way we transform, it may be compatible with our partner or not. So, in case we find out somebody, let's say they open up a lot emotionally, energetically, spiritually, thanks to that love, and the other person next to them may not open up in that direction. They may become more pragmatic, more practical. They may just be more socially driven or society oriented, or they just want to look for their status, for their classical way of having a family and functioning in society. Now, you may find that in this case, for instance, the two people don't have so much in common. They can't relate to one another. They've transformed into their better versions or their best versions, but these versions are no longer compatible. So in this case, yes, sex drive goes down because you don't find connections with the other person. And if you don't find a connection to the other person, you may naturally not want to have sex with them also. Now, this is something that it can be as obvious as the example that I gave you right now, or it can be something more subtle. Maybe we've lived an intense and loving and deep relationship, and somebody wants to explore the darker, most dangerous side of sexuality, while the other just wants the softer side. And they still have sex drive, but they have a sex drive for different things. And again, if they don't meet in arousal, because arousal is super important to our sex life, then they can't meet sexually. This is another reason, and it can be more subtle. So these people can still have the desire and the urge to have sex, but they just, they don't understand, why is this happening? Why don't I want to have sex with my partner, but I want to have sex in general? That means that they still have to explore, and whatever they explored in that relationship, sexually speaking, is gone, is already transformed, is already you've integrated it. And this is super fine. Now, another reason for the sex drive going down, it can be that the relationship somehow is deteriorating. So the two partners, they're seeing a lot of their shadows or a lot of their blind spots, a lot of their defects and faults and flaws and so on. And the interaction sort of goes sour between them, like the dynamic between them, the way they're relating to one another. And obviously, unless either one of them is wired sexually on negative emotions, they probably can't function. Now, this is a very, like the worst case that you can have, where two people just don't see eye to eye anymore and they've had enough of the other one. Yeah, the sex drive in most people goes down. Not the sex drive with their partners. But again, in general, they can be super sexual and they can want to relate with somebody else just as well. So, however emotions played out between them, it somehow brought them to the point where they see a lot of shadow in their partners, and obviously they have it also, but they don't know how to work around it. So because they don't know how to work around their shadows, because they can't seem to be able to transform, because relationship trigger us. So in a relationship, we're triggered, we're seeing the negative things that we have, and the purpose is actually to transform them. Now, if the partners don't find ways to transform themselves, they are just stuck in that negative loop. And obviously the sexual drive just goes down. Now, no matter which case we're going through, what is there to be done about it? First and foremost, it's important to do your internal work. Now, if you're really committed to personal development, this may come much easier. If you're not, you're just looking at, I always end up in the same place and I don't like this. Well, it's a natural place where relationships will take you, because the point is to move forward, to push through the obstacles, to push through the unconscious things that you're doing and that are keeping you down. And this is the opportunity that any relationship will give you, as long as you are aware that there's something that you want to push through there. Now, you can do this with the help of a personal development counselor or a coach, life coach. You can do this with the help of a therapist. You can do this with the help of somebody that you have around you who's much more experienced in relationships, and they can quote unquote mentor you. It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody who's super trained, as long as you trust them, that they can guide you, or that their life example can help you bring out resources inside of you to, transform through that. Secondly, if we're talking just about sexuality here, then there are ways that you can develop yourself. And this is where people like me can come in very handy, because we have a lot of programs, we put a lot of resources out there, books to read, documentaries to watch, and so on. And for the purpose of this video, I'll actually put a few resources underneath in terms of reading books, in terms of taking different programs that you may find useful for yourself. Now, just remember that this is a long run work. So if you've been going through, you have a 14-year-old relationship, and you think that you go to somebody and in one session or two sessions you'll have your problem solved, that's not realistic, and that's not giving yourself or your relationship a serious chance. As somebody recently told me, transformation sometimes can be super hard and super painful, and not everybody is so committed to transforming themselves. And also, not everybody is able or fit to see their partner transforming themselves. So no matter what you're going through, whether you're in a long-term relationship and you've come through across this obstacle, whether you've just separated from somebody, or whether you're just starting out with somebody, or you're just alone or single and you're considering this as well, rest assured that there are things that can be done. And no matter where you find yourself in the relationship dynamic, you can do individual work, you can do your internal work, and it matters. That's actually the first and most important thing that you ought to consider. Do your own work. And then you look at the work that you can do together with your partner. So there are solutions out there, and there are many couples who have been through a lot of challenges and a lot of dead ends or seemingly dead ends in their relationships, and yet they found ways to push through. So I hope this helps you a little bit or gives you a little bit of comfort. And until next week, I hope that you have a optimistic and determined and energized intimate life, and I'll see you in the next vlogs.